I had always preferred solitude. That's why I chose to spend my weekends hiking deep into the national forests, away from the noise of city life. This trip was no different. I had planned a peaceful weekend alone, camping by a remote lake miles away from the nearest road. Just me, the wilderness, and the quiet hum of nature. By the time I reached my chosen campsite, the sun was beginning to set. The lake stretched out before me, its surface smooth and untouched. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, a scent I had grown to love. I pitched my tent near the water's edge, set up a small fire, and cooked a simple meal. It was perfect. I sat on a log, enjoying the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the distant call of an owl. This was exactly what I needed, a break from everything. The first night was calm, almost too quiet. I fell asleep to the crackling of the dying fire and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. But sometime in the early hours of the morning I woke up, not because of a dream or discomfort, but because something felt off. Then I heard it, heavy breathing, slow, raspy, unsteady, right outside my tent. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sound was deep, human. It wasn't the short, quick breaths of an animal. It was deliberate, as if someone was standing just inches away, breathing through their mouth. My fingers tightened around my flashlight. I didn't dare move, didn't even shift my weight on the sleeping pad beneath me. The thin fabric of the tent felt like the only barrier between me and whoever, or whatever, was out there. The breathing continued. Inhale, exhale, slow, uneven. I swallowed hard, willing myself to stay silent. It felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Then, as suddenly as it started, the breathing stopped. I listened. Nothing. No footsteps, no rustling, just the distant sound of water lapping against the shore. Slowly, I allowed myself to relax, but I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. When the sun finally crept through the fabric of my tent, I cautiously stepped outside. The ground was damp from the morning dew, soft enough to hold footprints, but there were none. No sign that anyone had been near my tent, just my own tracks from the night before. I tried to shake it off. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe it was the wind playing tricks on my half-asleep mind. I forced myself to go about my day as planned. I fished in the lake, hiked through the dense woods, and tried to convince myself that last night had been nothing more than my own paranoia. But then the second night came. I checked the time when I woke up, 3:12 a.m. At first I wasn't sure why I had woken. The forest was silent, and my fire had long since burned out. Then I heard it again, breathing. Only this time it was closer. It was the same raspy inhale, the same shaky exhale, but now I could hear something else, a faint scratching sound, fingernails dragging lightly across the fabric of my tent. I gripped my flashlight and sat up, my pulse hammering in my ears. I forced my voice to remain steady. "Who's there?" Silence. The scratching stopped. Then, in the quiet darkness, a whisper drifted through the thin fabric. Low, barely audible. "You weren't supposed to wake up." A cold wave of fear washed over me. My breath caught in my throat. The voice had been so close, right outside my tent. I fumbled for my knife, but my fingers shook too much to grasp it properly. My instincts screamed at me to move, to do something. In a blind panic, I unzipped the tent in one swift motion, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the darkness. The clearing was empty. No movement, no figure retreating into the woods. But something was different. My backpack was open. The contents spilled out onto the damp ground. My knife was missing. I swallowed hard, my eyes scanning the shadows beyond the trees. There was nothing. No sign of footprints, no indication that anyone had been there. But I knew. I knew someone had been outside my tent, watching, whispering. Panic settled deep in my chest. I needed to leave, now. I grabbed my belongings in a rush, shoving everything into my pack with shaking hands. But as I reached for my phone to check the time again, a new sound made me freeze. The slow, deliberate sound of a tent zipper being opened. But my tent was already open. The sound was coming from somewhere else. My blood ran cold. I turned my flashlight toward the trees, my breath hitching in my throat. And that's when I saw it, a second tent. A small, dark-colored tent that I hadn't seen before. It was pitched just beyond the tree line, partially hidden among the thick underbrush. The zipper was halfway down, the flaps slightly open. Someone had been camping near me, watching me. I forced myself to move. My legs felt heavy, unsteady, but I ran toward my car. The miles I had hiked in didn't matter. I had one goal: get out of the forest. I stumbled through the darkness, my flashlight bouncing off the trees. I didn't look back. I couldn't look back. When I finally reached my car, breathless and shaking, I locked the doors and turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, but before I could put it in drive, my headlights illuminated something in the distance. A figure stood at the edge of the trees, tall, motionless, watching me. I didn't wait to see who it was. I slammed my foot on the gas, my tires kicking up dirt as I sped down the winding road. I didn't stop, not until I was miles away, the forest shrinking in my rearview mirror. I never reported it. What would I even say? That someone had been breathing outside my tent? That a second campsite had appeared overnight? There was no proof, no evidence, just the lingering fear that whoever was out there had been there all along. And the worst part, when I got home and emptied my bag, I found something that didn't belong to me. A single dirty Polaroid, a picture of me, taken while I was asleep in my tent. Camping had always been something I enjoyed. Just me, the wilderness, and the quiet escape from the chaos of city life. So when my best friend Mark suggested a weekend camping trip deep in Blackwood Forest, I was all in. The place was remote, untouched, and promised solitude. It was just the two of us. Mark and I had been camping together for years, and we knew the drill. Pack enough supplies, set up camp before sundown, and always keep a fire burning at night. The drive took us 4 hours, winding through endless roads before finally reaching the designated parking area. From there, it was a 3-mile hike into the woods to find the perfect spot. The first day was peaceful. We set up our tent near a clearing close to a freshwater stream. The weather was perfect, cool but not too cold. We spent the day hiking, gathering firewood, and cooking over the flames. By nightfall, we sat by the fire, drinking beers and sharing stories. But around midnight, things started to feel off. It started with a noise, a subtle rustling in the trees behind us. At first, we brushed it off as an animal, raccoons or maybe a deer, but then it happened again. This time, closer. Mark shone his flashlight into the darkness, scanning the tree line. Probably just a fox, he said, but I could see the slight tension in his face. The woods were silent now, too silent. No chirping insects, no distant hoots of owls, just an eerie stillness. Let's call it a night, I suggested, suddenly feeling uneasy. We put out the fire and retreated into the tent. The fabric felt thin, almost useless against whatever was out there. But we zipped up, locked our knives within reach, and tried to sleep. At some point in the night, I woke up to the sound of twigs snapping. It was deliberate, close. Someone or something was outside our tent. I held my breath, listening. Mark was still asleep. The footsteps circled around us, slow and calculated. My heart pounded as I reached for my knife. Then silence. Whoever it was had stopped. I waited, gripping the handle tightly, sweat forming on my palms. After a few minutes, I convinced myself it was just paranoia. Maybe a wild animal sniffing around. Still, I barely slept that night. The next morning, we found footprints. Human footprints. They weren't ours. Someone had been walking barefoot around our tent. The prints led from the woods, circled our camp, then disappeared back into the trees. Someone was watching us, I muttered. Mark frowned, his usual carefree demeanor gone. Let's pack up and move further in. We trekked another mile deeper into the woods, finding a new clearing near a large rock formation. It felt safer, more concealed, but something about those footprints stuck with me. Who the hell walks barefoot in the middle of a forest at night? That evening, we kept the fire burning high. Every now and then I swore I saw movement between the trees, quick, fleeting shadows just out of reach. Then, around 11 p.m., it happened again. The first sound was subtle, twigs breaking in the distance. Then came the feeling of being watched. My stomach tightened. Mark noticed it too. He put down his beer, eyes scanning the darkness. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. We sat in silence, waiting. Then a whistle. A low, eerie tune coming from the trees. A chill ran down my spine. "That's not an animal," I whispered. Mark grabbed the axe we brought for firewood. "Who's out there?" The whistling stopped. Then, footsteps. Running. Someone was charging toward our camp from the darkness. We both jumped to our feet. Mark swung his flashlight just in time to catch a figure darting past the edge of the light, too fast to make out any details. Then, nothing. The figure had disappeared. Just like that. We didn't sleep that night. We kept the fire going, weapons in hand. By dawn, we made a decision. We were leaving. We packed up fast, shoving everything into our bags. But just as we were about to head out, Mark stopped, staring at something on the ground. My stomach dropped. A knife was lying there, stuck upright in the dirt. It hadn't been there before, and attached to the handle was a small note, scribbled on a torn piece of paper. "You almost caught me." We ran. We didn't care about the trail, didn't care if we tripped or got lost. We just ran. When we finally reached the car, we threw everything inside and sped off, not stopping until we were miles away from Blackwood Forest. I still don't know who or what was out there that night. All I know is someone was hunting us, and they were enjoying the game. Camping was never really my thing, but after months of stressful work, a weekend away with my family seemed like the perfect way to unwind. My name is Jake Turner, a 38-year-old father of two. My wife Lisa and I have been married for 12 years, and our kids, Ethan and Sarah, were growing up too fast. Ethan was 15, always glued to his phone, and Sarah at 12 had a wild imagination that made even the simplest things seem extraordinary. We lived in the city, surrounded by noise, deadlines, and distractions. Lisa suggested a camping trip, a way to disconnect from screens and reconnect with each other. It sounded like a good idea at first. We packed our car with supplies and drove 3 hours to a secluded campsite near Blackwood Forest, a place Lisa had read about online. It was a well-maintained area, not too far from civilization, but isolated enough to feel like an adventure. When we arrived, we found only one other car parked near the trailhead, but we never saw its owners. The first day was peaceful. We set up our tent, built a fire, and told stories under the stars. The woods were quiet, save for the occasional rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. It felt perfect. But that night, something changed. I woke up around 2 a.m. to a faint sound outside our tent. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a raccoon sniffing around for food. But then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate. They circled the tent once, then stopped. I held my breath, listening. Lisa was still asleep beside me, and the kids were curled up in their sleeping bags. The footsteps started again, moving away this time, disappearing into the forest. I considered stepping outside to check, but something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I stayed awake, ears straining in the silence. Eventually, exhaustion won, and I drifted back to sleep. The next morning, I found boot prints in the dirt around our tent. They weren't ours. They were deep, larger than my own, and led into the woods before vanishing near a cluster of trees. I didn't mention it to Lisa, not wanting to scare her or the kids. Maybe it was another camper passing through, I told myself. Maybe I was overreacting. We spent the day hiking, trying to enjoy ourselves. but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Ethan noticed it too. He kept glancing over his shoulder, as if sensing something unseen. Later that afternoon, as we made our way back to camp, we saw something strange. A piece of fabric caught on a low-hanging branch. It was torn, dark, and stiff, like it had been there for a while. Lisa shrugged it off, but Ethan and I exchanged uneasy glances. When we reached our campsite, everything seemed normal. Still, I couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at me. That night, I decided to keep watch for a while before sleeping, just in case. At around 2:30 a.m., I heard it again. The same footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving through the underbrush. But this time they stopped just outside our tent. I barely breathed. Then, something pressed against the fabric of the tent, a faint outline of a hand, fingers splayed, motionless. My heart pounded as I reached for the flashlight, gripping it tightly. But before I could turn it on, the hand pulled away and the footsteps retreated into the darkness. I didn't sleep after that. In the morning, I told Lisa everything. She was shaken but tried to stay calm for the kids. We agreed to cut the trip short and leave before nightfall. As we packed, I noticed something new. Near the fire pit, a knife was lodged into a tree. It wasn't ours. The blade gleamed in the morning light, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Someone had been here, watching us, and they wanted us to know. We left the campsite in a hurry, walking fast along the trail. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting to see someone following us, but the woods were eerily still, too still. As we neared the parking area, I felt relief until I saw him. A man stood in the middle of the trail about 50 feet ahead. He was tall, his clothes dirty and torn. His face was pale, hollow, like he hadn't eaten in days. He didn't move, he just watched. My grip tightened on Ethan's shoulder, silently signaling him to stay close. Lisa whispered, "Jake, let's go back." But before we could turn around, the man raised his hand and dropped something. It landed with a soft thud on the dirt path. My wallet. My stomach twisted. I hadn't even realized it was missing. The man's lips moved, barely above a whisper. "You need to leave, now." His voice was hoarse, strained, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. I didn't wait to find out more. We hurried past him, my heart pounding, expecting him to grab me or do something, but he didn't move. He just stood there watching as we left. When we reached our car, I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. Lisa locked the doors the moment we got inside. I looked back toward the trail one last time. The man was gone. We drove straight home, barely speaking. That night, unable to shake the unease, I searched online for any reports of missing persons near Blackwood Forest. What I found made my blood run cold. A hiker had gone missing 2 weeks before we arrived. His name? Daniel Harper. The same name I had seen on the ID inside my returned wallet. The report said his body had never been found. He had vanished without a trace. I don't know what I saw that day. I don't know how he had my wallet or why he warned us. But one thing is certain, if we had stayed another night, we might not have made it out.